Oh my God! We have to go back to 1998 because Resident Evil has been remade! Again!
Resident Evil 2.
After Resident Evil 1 got a remake on the GameCube, we all knew that a Resident Evil 2 remake was bound to happen, and it did. Just 17 years after the first remake. Guess you shouldn't hold your breath on a Nemesis remake. I absolutely loved the Resident Evil 1 remake. It gave a fresh coat of paint to a really great game. It has a much darker tone than its original incarnation, with the mansion and surrounding areas given a much creepier look. Doesn't have the same campiness and funny dialogue, but hey, that's what going back and playing the original is for. Or its other remake. And now we finally got a remake that gives Resident Evil 2 this kind of overhaul, and since it is 17 years after the original remake, it's got quite a bit more of a bump up in graphics and presentation. You can almost seamlessly run through the entire game going room to room without having to wait for any loading screens like a door slowly opening. There's only a few times you'll see a loading screen during regular gameplay, unless you're reloading a save. The load times are fairly quick in this game too, which is nice coming off those really long loads which would happen sometimes in RE7. Speaking of Resident Evil 7, this game plays a bit like that game mashed with Resident Evil 4. The immediate look of this game is of course more RE4 with the over-the-shoulder viewpoint, but some of the controls are more reminiscent of RE7, particularly pressing in the analog thumbstick to run and using both the sticks to move and look around. I don't hate having to press L3 and to run because really that probably is more convenient than having to press in one of the other buttons, but when you have to hold this in as long as you do while playing this game, it does get a little annoying on your thumb. But that is just kind of a minor nitpick. Also, I think a part of me was a little sad that this wasn't more akin to the Resident Evil 1 remake, where it still sort of had the original gameplay, just updated a bit, where the Resident Evil 2 remake is a completely different playstyle than the original game. However, I do think it was a better call them giving you this different gameplay style, as it does offer you a more varied experience in the RE2 world. And I'm really glad it was back to the over-the-shoulder viewpoint for this game rather than it being in the first person like RE7. There's a reason RE4 made this popular, and it is a good viewpoint for this game. I'll say that the free aim controls in this game took me a little bit to get used to, but I think that's largely because the last console game I played with controls like this was Resident Evil 7. After a bit of gameplay, I got fairly decent at getting headshots with these controls, and if you don't want to have to worry as much about your aim, there is an assisted mode which will sort of snap your aim onto parts of the enemy to shoot.
Son of a bitch.
One thing that is also nice is that ink ribbons are a thing of the past. Where we're saving, we don't need ink ribbons. Unless you play on hardcore mode, then the ink ribbons are back. Ink ribbons. I can't believe. Another super convenient thing in this game is the light on the controller actually shows you your status. So if you're fine, it's lit up green, goes yellow to orange if you're in caution, red when you're in danger, and purple if you got poisoned. The controller's speaker also plays certain sounds like radio banter and unlocking things. Yes! I am the master of unlocking! Which, of course, is an achievement in this game.
You, the master of unlocking.
Yeah. A big thing I was glad to see when jumping into this remake was that the focus wasn't shifted more to action. This very much has the survival horror feel. And it is extremely unsettling at times due to the atmosphere it sets up. This is a way creepier take on the Raccoon Police Department. The building is in a much larger state of disrepair than it was originally. One hall has completely been flooded by an overflowing toilet. Maybe if old James Sunderland was in the Resident Evil universe, he could fix that toilet issue.
would even think of doing something so disgusting?
The map is especially handy in the RE2 remake. A room stays red until you've found all the items in there, and as long as your character has seen an item, they'll mark its position. Once everything is clear, the room is marked blue, and you'll know that you don't necessarily have to return to that room. And there are certainly a few rooms in this game you'll be happy to mark off and stay clear of. Conserving your ammo is quite important in the remake because you'll likely get pretty low or run out if you try to plow down every enemy. So you'll likely want to try and slip by some of them when you can. Especially as sometimes the zombies in this game just do not want to stay down! If you're trying to take out a zombie, you'll probably have to double check if it's really dead sometimes, as they'll fall down a few times before they're actually gonna stay down. A good idea I found was just to focus on trying to make one semi-safe path to areas you need to travel to and a safe room, as there are usually multiple paths to some of the key areas once you've unlocked some doors, and you definitely want some cleared areas in the game because zombies will give chase into other rooms. Luckily though, you don't have to worry about decapitating or burning all the zombies so that they don't reanimate as Crimson Heads like they did in the RE1 remake. Another good reason to have some clear spots is, though, you'll probably also have to backtrack to some areas to finish solving puzzles, which have been changed up quite a bit in the remake. Certain ones like pushing statues around are gone, and there's a lot more combination locks around. Another useful tactic to save some ammo is to use some of the defensive weapons to take out enemies or at least deal a good amount of damage to them. Particularly if you've got some grenades saved up. You can use these as secondary items, but also when you get grabbed, as long as you have one of these defensive items on you, you can counter with them. This is especially nice with grenades as it ensures a large amount of damage to that enemy. Just make sure though you don't get grabbed from behind, as you can't counter the butt tackles. Also, as long as lickers aren't aggroed, you can slowly sneak by them in quite a few cases, as they can't actually see you, which will also likely save quite a bit of health and ammo. Another part of this game that causes a lot of tension and where you'll want to save ammo is when you're being chased by the Mr. X Tyrant. At certain points in the game, more frequent depending on which scenario you're on and which character you're playing as, you'll have to evade the tyrant known as Mr. X. You can't actually defeat him during this. You can stun him momentarily if you shoot him enough, but that's it.
Move it.
I prefer to just lure him into a room with enough space to get around him, or hide out in one of the few rooms that Mr. X won't enter. Mr. X has a theme which kicks in once he spots you, which makes you way more nervous during this part of the game. While Mr. X did show up in the second scenario of the original game, he, of course, didn't quite chase you around into different rooms like he does in the remake. And you could fight him off briefly until his next scripted appearance, making him a much more fear-inducing threat in the remake. And this is another element of this game which reminds me of RE7, where you had to avoid Jack Baker as he'd chase you down whenever he saw you and you could only stun him. For the most part, I found the gameplay of the new style Resident Evil 2 to be perfect, and it felt like a great modernizing of the game while keeping the same feel. The most annoying thing gameplay-wise which happened to me was a kind of run bug where for some reason my character was stuck walking, which cost me some hits. I don't really know what causes it, but the worst time it happened was in the sewers when one of those kind of mini William Birkins got me and poisoned me. These G adults kind of replace the spiders in the sewers area and are one of the hardest enemies to get past. Though the planted zombies known as Ivies are pretty bad too and sound like they're out of the Grudge.
Oh no.
Best to give them a nice little dose of Mr. Flamethrower or flame rounds, depending on who you're playing as. There are a few neat things you can get as DLC or included with the deluxe edition of the game. You get the special Wesker gun and some different costumes for Leon and Claire, one apparently making Claire a member of STARS. They both get a noir-style costume as well, which has an optional black and white filter when you choose it. You can mix around the costumes for the characters as well, which I was playing with, and then I kind of forgot that I put Leon in the Arkley Sheriff one partway through playing as Claire, so it made me laugh when he showed up in that at the end.
Claire!
Leon! It's so good to see you.
You'll also be able to unlock the original costumes option, which not only switches Leon and Claire to their classic look, but also Ada and Sherry. So, if you know about the beta version of RE2 nicknamed Resident Evil 1.5, you'll get a kick out of the fact that they've added a costume for Claire based on the character she replaced from the early build of the game, Elza Walker. Now, I do kind of wonder why they keep changing people's faces in the Resident Evil games. I don't hate their designs in this game or anything, but even based on their faces in more recent things, they've changed a bit. But I think one of the coolest bonuses they add was being able to switch to the original music and menu sounds. Resident Evil 2, I think, has one of the best and most memorable soundtracks in the series, so being able to switch over to it is a nice treat. A lot of the remake's original score is more ambient, though you can hear hints of the original main hall theme while you're in there.
Anybody here?
I've also always found the original library theme to be quite haunting. Though there are a few tracks I really like from the remake's new score, like the Mr. X theme is much more intense. And it seems the disaster in Raccoon City was slightly less abrupt as it was presented in the original game. When you first get into town, you hear an announcement about the outbreak going on, advising you to head to the police station, and once you're there, you can see a bunch of makeshift areas made to treat people or for them to sleep, where you don't see emergency setups like this in the original game, just some areas with seemingly hastily thrown together barricades. This slight change in setup also helps to explain why there's more zombies roaming around the police station. I found it pretty neat how they still gave you some sort of familiar locations, but changed where some of them would show up, so you might think they didn't recreate a certain room until bam, there it is later.
Going through that gun shop looks like the only way.
Like, for example, down the sewers area, in the original game there was a part where you had to stop a fan so you could go through a tunnel. This doesn't show up at all in Claire's game in the remake. It's not till you're playing as Ada during Leon's campaign that you'll see the recreation of this. There's actually quite a few changes they've made to story elements and character-specific scenarios. Most importantly, of course, is, though, that Leon never says his catchphrase, "Ada, wait!"
Ada, wait! Ada, wait!
In the original game, Ada's cover story was that she was searching for her boyfriend John, who worked at Umbrella, where in the remake she's posing as an FBI agent sent to bring down Umbrella.
FBI.
But of course, we know better and that Ada's really a mercenary trying to get a G-virus sample so she can sell it.
Oh, Leon.
Why couldn't he just hand over the sample?
There's also some changes like the reporter Ben who's trying to dig into Umbrella and is stuck in a jail cell. In the original, Ben has shut himself in there because he thinks it's safe. In the remake, it helps further the plot as we find out that Chief Irons put him in there because he's in the pocket of Big Umbrella. Also, who kills him has been changed from William Birkin to Mr. X.
Oh my god.
Leon really has to deal with old Xy boy a lot more than Claire. Mr. X shows up in a few locations for Leon, which he never does for Claire, and there's a few other things character specific, like the giant alligator, which only appears in Leon's story now, where in the original either could encounter it. I'm glad they made some things like this specific to the characters, as it changes the gameplay up between the two of them a bit more, and really, they've added so much that it doesn't feel like either is missing something. It also makes story sense why Leon is the only one to now run into the alligator, as he and Claire enter the sewer section of the game in completely different spots. Leon goes in after passing through Kendo's gun shop, which is also exclusive to Leon now, and they gave old Kendo a daughter who's been infected.
You're a cop. You're supposed to know something. How did this happen? Huh? She was a sweet little angel.
Mommy.
I was sleeping, honey. Okay? And I'm gonna put you to bed too, okay?
Yeah, kinda gives him a bit of a sadder story than just being some random guy who says a few things to you and then dies.
Freeze! Who are you? What are you doing here?
Claire, on the other hand, enters the sewers after rescuing Sherry from the evil orphanage where she's kept by Chief Irons, who's a character they've really expanded on. And all of it sucks! I mean, for him as a person, story-wise, it makes him a much more compelling antagonist. Chief Irons seemed to be mostly out of his mind by the time you found him before and barely did much to impede you, but that is certainly not the case now.
On the ground, hands behind your head.
You can't be serious.
On the ground, now. Sherry, tie her hands. You tie her up now, or she dies.
You heard her, I swear to God, my brother is stars and I will fuck.
And evading him in the orphanage with Sherry is also another super tense part of the game, as she has no means of fighting back. You also learn that this orphanage Chief Irons was involved with was shipping children off to be test subjects for Umbrella. So, yeah, he's kinda bad. And he dies!
Get off me!
Geez, I'd hope so. I'd be slightly annoyed if they changed that part. How you meet certain characters in the story has changed a bit too, as Claire meets Sherry right as William Birkin is about to attack you.
Do you need help? Here, you can take my hand.
You need help.
Why?
He's right behind you.
What? Oh, God.
Sherry also isn't oblivious to the fact that the monster chasing her down is actually her father, like she was originally. Leon could also run into Sherry briefly in his game before, where here he'll never see her until the ending.
Who's this?
This is Sherry.
Okay.
Yeah? And a few things that used to be scenario A or B specific are now character specific. So Leon is the only one who has a final confrontation with Mr. X, and Claire is the only one who has the last or second to last battle, depending on the scenario, with William Birkin. Which makes a lot more sense, as it's Ada who tosses you the rocket launcher to finish X off, and she never meets Claire before this, so it was kinda odd that she does that for her.
Use this! Who are you?
Should have obviously been Sherry tossing her the rocket launcher. Which character you play as the first or second story does change a few things too. Whoever is in first gets to pal around with the wounded cop Marvin, who gets a bit more to do in the remake as he's hanging out in the main hall and you have a few encounters with him instead of him just locking himself up in the West office.
Just go!
Fine, but I'm coming back for you.
They also enter the police station at different points and have to navigate a bit differently. This also changes who's on what side of this fence in the cutscene where Leon and Claire briefly meet up.
It's so nice to see you.
How are you doing? That helicopter just came out of nowhere.
Which is a kind of weird scene as they are overly smiley with each other, seemingly hinting that they like each other when that was never really a thing before.
How are you doing?
You know, just surviving.
That's good.
Guess Leon is just into everybody in this game. Better watch out, Sherry. Ugh, that'd be gross. Good thing it's just her father trying to stick an embryo in her. Some of the story's kind of weird when you think about it. Leon and Claire even kind of stand there being smiley with each other when zombies show up, and the person on the other side of the fence is kind of an idiot as they could easily get bit.
Leon, you should get going.
We're gonna make it. Both of us.
I also find it weird when Leon asks Claire if she's found anything out about her brother Chris when she's on the outside of the fence.
Any luck with your brother?
No, not yet.
Because when you see things from that side, you realize she hasn't even been in the police station yet. And as far as Chris, Jill, Barry, and Rebecca go, there's been a kind of interesting change in their story after the Arkley Mansion incident. Originally, they were forthcoming about reporting exactly what happened at the Arkley Mansion involving the zombies and Umbrella.
Chris and the other STARS members discovered that Umbrella was behind everything.
But this time, the STARS members apparently kept it mostly to themselves, possibly due to them figuring out that Chief Irons was corrupt, and reporting Umbrella's involvement would lead nowhere. So you find a note from Chris just talking about going on vacation in Europe trying to hook up, which even Claire remarks on sounding strange.
This does not sound like Chris.
Which definitely seems to be a cover story, especially as originally he wrote about going to Europe to confront Umbrella's headquarters there. And while we're on the STARS members, you'll notice that in their room, that Wesker has upgraded to his own little office instead of having to hang out with the rest of the STARS scum. Probably made it a little easier to take his evil phone calls, having a bit of privacy. You'll also notice in his office that he has the original STARS team photo, which is neat, but we also learn in the remake that Wesker is apparently really into flower paintings. And also old-timey pregnant women. Jeez, it'd be a real shame if someone ruined his stupid painting. See, now it makes sense for Wesker to be so angry at Claire in Code Veronica.
I despise Claire.
Whatever.
You can also search Wesker's desk to find some goodies, and much like how if you search the desk 50 times in the original game, if you find a roll of film in the sewers, it'll show you Wesker's pictures of his super secret hiding area, which is the drawer of his desk. I see how he might have forgotten that and how it was a well-kept secret. You'll find a Magnum scope upgrade, and even more hidden is the original secret Wesker's desk item of a photo of Rebecca Chambers posing with a basketball. Maybe Wesker had a thing for Rebecca?
You guys are idiots.
Wesker, you are so cruel.
I'm sorry. I hope she's okay.
You know, I almost thought they had moved the year Resident Evil 2 was supposed to happen in when I saw that they had this special STARS USB device at first. But you do see that it is still in fact 1998, and USB did technically exist then, but it wasn't used by the mass public yet, so this device is highly unlikely for the time. Pretty much ruins the entire game. Or it's just a bit of an anachronism, I noticed. While the remake really added a lot of depth to areas in the story, I think the character they really improved on the most was Annette Birkin. Annette, like before, was helping her husband William develop the G-Virus for Umbrella, but then William wanted to keep it for himself and got into a minor altercation with the people sent to come and take it away from him.
I'll ask you one more time. Hold your fire!
And that's when he turned himself into the G-Virus monster you fight in the game. Now, originally, Annette had a lot less dimension to her character. She basically wanted to prove how great a scientist her husband was and wanted the G-Virus for more selfish reasons. She still cared about her daughter Sherry, but was far less involved with trying to save her. Now, Annette's motivation is trying to prevent the G-Virus from getting spread any further and stopping William. She is kind of laser focused on that task only until Claire is able to remind her that she should kinda be into saving her daughter as well.
William is still out there, and if I don't stop him, this conversation is over. Wait! Wait! I can treat her. In my lab. It's not far away.
You get a much more sympathetic view of Annette during Claire's story as she is aiding you and Sherry, where in Leon, she knows Ada's true goal and is trying to stop you at points and causes Leon's ending to be a bit more of a bummer.
And you shoot me. But I don't think you can.
In Claire's story, Annette does cure Sherry of her G-Virus infection that she got thanks to her father, but dies shortly after because she succumbs to her wounds that she got while also trying to fight him.
But that's no excuse for...
It's a rather sad moment for Sherry as she's now lost both of her parents.
No!
Though she seems to get over it kinda quick.
So, are you guys like boyfriend and girlfriend? Hey, you guys can adopt me.
Sherry. Shut up.
But
it's finally over.
Overall, I love what they've done with Resident Evil 2's story in the remake, but I do kind of miss Alison Court voicing Claire, as that was like the one character in Resident Evil who kept the same voice actor for quite a while.
Sorry about that little misunderstanding, but I thought you were another one of those
Shut up. Make one wrong move and I'll shoot.
And there's points in this game where I don't feel like Claire's personality comes through very well. Though that really is just in certain points, as she does have some rather funny lines.
That bastard is the police chief?
I want to see where you live.
Good. I take a shower.
Yeah.
Really? That bad? Oh, yeah.
No, no, no! Hurry, you freak! No hurt him.
Glad I watched that.
Much like you're all glad you watched this, right? Anyway, go play the new Resident Evil 2. It's a Leon and Claire sandwich. Or it's just really fun. That probably makes more sense.
I don't like this movie, doesn't look too friendly. This bootleg is so fake, that toy is gonna break. Phelous, don't let me down, you need to be around. hot chocolate pizza I even like because I want.
Phelous, oh Phelous, bring on multi-comedy. Phelous, oh Phelous, an animation movie. Phelous, oh Phelous, what really is so fun? Phelous, oh Phelous, what's your opinion about?
I just got back from a date with a hot chick. Bet you can guess what we got up to under her extra large umbrella?
Wow, Chris. Style!
Barry, don't you even think of coming to join me?
Don't worry, Chris. I won't.
You know my popular Mr. Raccoon toys? Well, I heard some bad kids have been using them for target practice. Raccoon City is so stupid.